today's video, Chacho says hello too. Are you gonna say hi? Give me for a second. Say hello. Gotta sniff my face every single time. So, in today's, oh my god, alright, that's enough, Chacho. Here he is for all the people that want to see him. He's gonna eat my face. In today's video, we're gonna talk about animals that I never talk about because I typically myself like to keep calm, very predictable animals that just kind of soothe me and calm me down because I have anxiety and stress in my life, especially with chronic disease. So having reptiles that are slow moving and just soothing and relaxing is my cup of tea. However, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people like reptiles because they want animals that have that unpredictable factor, that excite them, that's like an adrenaline rush. And so we're going to talk about those reptiles today. I do want to mention that the animals I'll be listing today are absolutely not for beginners for a lot of these reasons. So I typically recommend more predictable, slow-moving reptiles for people that are beginners. And the animals that we're going to be discussing today are definitely more challenging. So if you have experience and you prefer animals that give you a little bit of stress or just excitement, then these animals are a good choice for you. But of course, do your research and make sure that you can properly take care of them and give them a good environment to have a happy life in captivity. So the first reptile on my list today are TOKAY geckos. TOKAY geckos are amazing geckos, but they are absolutely not for everyone. They are known to have an incredible amount of force when they bite, and they have very, very sharp teeth. So they are known as the pit bulls in the gecko world because they have such strong jaws and they are typically very temperamental. They're very defensive, they're highly intelligent, and they do not put up with any crap. So this is a reptile that requires a lot of patience and understanding if you're trying to have it be handleable in the future. If not, and you don't really want to handle it too often, that's fine. They will prefer that. But if you have to clean the enclosure or do things like that, like you're probably going to come into contact with a little bit of a feisty gecko because that's just typically how their personalities are. Not every single TOKAY is super defensive and bitey. Some of them are more tolerant than others. Each one will again have its own personality just like any other type of reptile, but they are just typically known for having very feisty attitudes and biting people. So it's definitely something to be aware of. It's not something for beginners to get into because a lot of the times people actually buy TOKAY geckos because they're cheap and they're beautiful. They bring them home, they aren't aware of the attitude factor, and then they end up realizing it and then they rehome the animal or just don't want it anymore, or they just give bad care because they're literally scared of their animal. So if you are up for the challenge, a TOKAY gecko can be an amazing pet. The people that I know that do keep TOKAY geckos, they don't just like keep them and think like, oh, they're okay. They're like extremely passionate about these animals because there really is so much to appreciate with them because they are so intelligent, and earning their trust is one of the best things that you could possibly do. It's very satisfying. So yeah, if you are interested in TOKAY geckos, please do your research, but they are definitely one of the more challenging reptiles to keep. Next on my list are frilled dragons. So frilled dragons, I don't know. I felt the need to put it on my list because I wanted to put fast-moving animals on this list as well because I feel like that does give you a little bit of an adrenaline rush when reptiles are fast-moving. And frilled dragons can run super fast. So if you set them on the ground, they literally will run on 2 legs, and it is so fast. So that I feel like can get your adrenaline going. They can also be pretty feisty, and the really cool thing about frilled dragons is that their defense when they're feeling threatened is that they will stick out their frill, and it's really, really cool looking. If they get used to you and they get accustomed to you and they tolerate you, they'll frill up less and less. They only feel the need to do that when they're threatened. But if you but I feel like it's just one of the coolest things about them. It's why most people want to keep them, is because of that really cool defense mechanism. But yeah, I feel like they are definitely not a beginner reptile. They're for more experienced keepers. They do require a lot of space, and their care is definitely by no means easy either. But if you want an animal with a little bit more spunk, I feel like frilled dragons definitely make the list. Number 3, I didn't pick an exact species. I'm kind of covering all monitor species of lizard because they are all super intelligent, very inquisitive, and they can be a handful. They can be very dangerous depending on how large of a monitor you have as well. They have very sharp teeth. They have very, very strong tails that they can whip you with. And again, like, that intelligence factor really, really just adds to how difficult it is to take care of these animals and to build a relationship. You have to be very patient, put in so much work. And I'm not even talking about, like, obviously a Nile monitor is going to require even more work than, say, an Ackie monitor. An Ackie monitor is significantly smaller, but they're still very intelligent and behave in similar ways. So depending on what you're up to, I personally don't think it's a good idea to keep really large monitors, because I find that I feel like if you're going to own an animal like that, you need to dedicate like an entire room to them to give them what they need. I do not like seeing them in any type of like standard enclosure that you'd see anywhere. So that's typically why I just don't recommend them as pets. But there are smaller species. My one species that I love are green tree monitors. I think that they are just absolutely amazing animals. I would love to own one someday. But all of them will definitely get your adrenaline going, and they can be very challenging, so they make the list. Number 4, it's kind of a weird distinction to go from monitors to number 4, which is day geckos. Day geckos, I think, are challenging and can give you a little bit of an adrenaline kick because they're very, very fast, like super lightning bolt fast, and they can slough off their skin. And for me, that just stresses me out. That's a whole other level of challenge, because if you lose this type of gecko and you're trying to capture it, if you rub it a certain way too hard, it can literally slough its skin off, which just is super gross. It's their defense mechanism. It helps them to get away even faster from whatever is threatening them. So it's something to be aware of before getting one. Care for these guys can be a little bit challenging as well. I would not recommend them for beginners, but when it comes to that handleability factor, I feel like they give a little bit of an adrenaline rush as well. So that's why I put them on my list. Number 5 is rat snakes. I can confidently say that rat snakes are not something that I will ever own, like ever. I have seen videos of them. I do not have my own personal experience with them. Maybe I would change my mind if I did. However, from what I have seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, rat snakes are very, very high energy. They're large bodied and they are hard to handle. And they can be feisty as well. So all of those it's one big ball of stress for someone like me. But other people absolutely live for that. So if you are one of those people that thinks that sounds so exciting and so fun and you want to try and like work with an animal like that, then a rat snake might be right up your alley. Number 6 are Amazon tree boas. So I wanted to put possibly like emerald tree boas or green tree pythons, you know, like all the arboreal types of snakes that are known for being feisty. But I want to focus more on the Amazon tree boas just because I feel like they pack a little bit more of a punch when it comes to attitude. I feel that green tree pythons can be fairly tolerant, and so can emerald tree boas. But Amazon tree boas, they can be tolerant, but I feel like it's less likely. They most of the time are just very, very strictly highly defensive. So correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't worked with them. It's an animal that I would absolutely love to own one day. And I know, like I'm saying, I want all the calm animals, but that is like the one high energy kind of defensive animal that I would absolutely be up for the challenge with. I just absolutely love them. They're stunning animals, and they have to be defensive because they are arboreal, which means that they're up in the trees. So they can be pretty threatened from like anything else in the trees or birds, other animals, other snakes. So it's very important for them to always be like ready, locked, and loaded and ready to defend themselves by the only means that they have, which are their sharp teeth. So it's definitely a really, really cool animal, but very, very challenging and absolutely not good for beginners. Number 7, I was talking to my friend because I was like, what else should I put on this list? It's kind of hard for me to come up with animals like this because I typically am always focused on the calm reptiles. But she mentioned sailfin dragons, which I absolutely love them. They are beautiful, beautiful animals, but they have very, very sharp teeth and they have a lot of attitude and they can be very, very hard to handle. Again, with a lot of work, you can work with them and they can become more tolerant over time, but it's a very, very, very challenging animal. They love water, they need a lot of space, they get big, they're sassy, and then those sharp teeth on top of everything. And they're intelligent, like such an amazing, cool animal. We definitely don't see them too often when it comes to keeping pets. I have seen them in like a couple of zoos and things like that. But with good reason. I feel like they would be very challenging to keep. So it's obviously not something you want to see a lot of people keeping. But if you can find a breeder, you're interested in working on a project like that, and you can provide a good home, sailfin dragon might be for you. Number 8, last on my list, iguanas. Iguanas are like one of the most staple reptiles. Like people everyone knows the word iguana. They don't necessarily know what an iguana looks like because they'll look at a chameleon and say, oh, it's an iguana. But iguana is just like ingrained in our brain because it was like the most popular reptile in the 90s. And it's like when the whole hobby became a thing, like iguanas were like the it lizard, and they were so cheap, they were so easy to get. They're still so cheap and easy to get, which is infuriating because they are super challenging and they can be adrenaline rushing. They, especially males, from what I have heard, again, I don't have experience, that's why I kind of don't like making videos like this, but I'm just talking about like my opinions and like what I know. From what I do know, the males can be very, very aggressive. Especially during like the time that it would be for them to mate. So different situations like that. Again, they're large, they're hard to accommodate. I constantly have people asking like, what can I put my iguana in? And most people just have to build something that's suitable for them because they just get so big. So yeah, it's not a reptile that I recommend like at all, but if you can make the accommodations, give it a good home, and you're up for the challenge for an intelligent, large-bodied lizard that has some big teeth and some attitude, it might be the lizard for you. I do see a lot of people that do have them. They work with them every single day. They take so much work. But it really does pay off in the end because they can become such tolerant and amazing pets. Like, I would love to have one, but I just know how much work they require, and I don't know if I would have the time or energy for it. But if you do, an iguana might be a good fit for you. Definitely not a good fit for beginners or most people, but for the niche people that love that adrenaline and have the patience and the passion to put in for iguanas, they can make amazing pets for those people. So I would love to hear what reptiles you think should be on this list. What reptiles do you think are pretty challenging and can cause an adrenaline rush? Please leave it in my comment section. I would love to see it. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one.